Okay guys, so I'm going to be making a sort of mixed grill kind of thing slash surf and turf. It's going to be a little bit of a mixture of different cuisines and cultures. Just going to have a bit of a mashup really. So I'm starting with these beef short ribs. I'm going to cook these sous vide. So I'm going to make up a little marinade for them. They're going to be a port, balsamic glaze and brown sugar glaze on them, and yeah, with the way that sous vide works, everything kind of goes soft and sort of not soggy but moist and soft, so you can't really get a sear on these at the end without overcooking them and making them dry. So we're going to get the pieces trimmed up. Let's remove this silver skin here and some of this fat. Do the same on this one, it's not too bad. Just remove the silver skin on the back against the bone. And yeah, I'm going to get these pre-seared, ready for sous vide. Okay, so that's the excess fat and the silver skin removed. There is some fat in here that would render down nicely if you were going to roast these, but in sous vide you're not going to get them. You're not going to get it all to render out. There's not really anywhere for it to go, and there's plenty of intermuscular fat on these cuts anyway, so we don't need to keep any of that surface fat on. They are ready now for a good searing and ready to be dumped into a vacuum bag with some marinade, and we're going to sous vide these for 24 hours. Okay, there we have it, nicely seared. As you can see, I forgot to use my flame-proof wooden chopping board. Yeah. Okay, so to a pan I've added 30 grams of molasses and 30 grams of soft brown sugar. I'm going to get this nice and sweet and sticky. Going to put that onto a medium-high heat, and I'm going to go in with a good glug of Worcestershire sauce. Then some balsamic vinegar of Modena. I'm just eyeballing this, just use what's left. This is what I do most of the time. If you want approximations, a tablespoon of Worcester sauce, 30 ml of balsamic, and then I'm going in with some port. Probably about 50 ml there. Bring that to a boil and reduce to a syrup. Okay, so we're getting a bit of froth and slowly reducing. It's like a balsamic caramel at the moment. In the meantime, I'm just going to season the short ribs with some coarsely cracked black pepper and some salt. What have we got on the table today? Himalayan pink salt, why not? Give that a pat down. Slightly moist from the blowtorch, in their own juices that is, so this gives the salt and pepper something to stick to. We won't need to season this or the sauce again because of what's going on here. They're all ready now to be put in with the glaze, so we can get them in a vacuum pack bag. Okay, so we've got the short ribs in a vacuum pack bag. We've reduced our balsamic glaze, balsamic red wine, well, port and brown sugar glaze. It's a nice light syrup now. As that cools, it'll get thicker, but it's fine for what we need at the moment. So I'm going to pour this into the bag, seal it up with a vacuum sealer, and get it in the sous vide. Now this bag could have been a bit bigger, but I'm used to hearing that all my whole life, so don't be put off. If you can fit it in, you can fit it in. It should be okay, but yeah, ideally you'd want a bit more space, especially with liquid being in there. You can get little strips that sit in the edge of the bag, which aid with the vacuum sealing of items that have got wet substances in. It stops the moisture from being dragged up into the machine or into your seal to cause havoc with your seal. What I have done is just peeled back the edge of the bag to make sure that anything going in that might touch the bag doesn't wet or oil up the bag, so that when I bring that lip back over to seal it, it's nice and clean. If you haven't got a vacuum sealer, you can just use a Ziploc bag and submerge it in the water of the sous vide bath to remove all the air, and then zip it shut as close to the surface of the water as you can. That should do an okay job. Okay, so we're in the vacuum sealer. It's going to take the moisture out and seal the bag. Take the moisture out, take the air out, sorry, and seal the bag. I have had a little bit of a leach out there, maybe a little bit there as well. Is that going to affect the seal, or is it going to make a good seal? Yes, we've got a good seal. It didn't reach far enough to reach the seal, so we're sealed. I'm going to put a second seal on just to be doubly sure, and then get it in the sous vide. Okay, so I've got my sous vide machine heating up the water. It's on for 24 hours and it's set to 76.5 degrees C, which is 170 Fahrenheit. That should bring these bad boys out absolutely gorgeous. So I'll see you when it's done. Okay guys, so it's the next day. We are roughly 3 hours away from the short ribs being finished. So I'm going to start prepping some other items. Got some water boiling here. I'll come into the boil. Add a pinch of salt to that. And then I'm just going to add a couple of nice juicy lobster tails. Pop them in there. And they'll be in there for 7 minutes. Get a timer on for them. I'm just going to add a dash of rice vinegar into the water, which will help the meat release from the shell easier. Okay, that's the 7 minutes up, so I'm going to take these out, put them into a bowl of iced water, which will cool these very quickly and stop the cooking process so that they don't overcook. Then when they get down to a reasonable temperature, I can handle them, I can de-shell the meat, and they shall be ready for poaching in butter. Okay, so they're down to a reasonable temperature now. I'm just going to give them a bit of a crack just to release the shell. And then we're just going to go down the centre with a pair of kitchen shears, cut down to the tail, and then peel the shell away. Okay, so there we go, deshelled lobster tails. They can go back in the pan, ready for poaching in butter. Okay, so we've now got a rack of pork ribs, which I'm just going to trim. I mean, there's not much to take off on this side, just tidy it up a little bit. On the back, I'm just going to get rid of this silver skin here, just go under it with the handle of a spoon. That should start to release it. Some people use kitchen roll. In fact, I'm getting under it there as it is, but yeah, I'll pull all that off, tidy it up a little bit, and cut them into individual ribs. Okay, so that is our pork ribs ready to go. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sear them in a baking tray, get some colour on them, because they're going to be cooked very gently and slowly. You're not going to get the colour and the flavour from the Maillard reaction that you want from that nice sort of caramelised dark brown look you get on seared and char grilled meats. Yes, you could have done this in one piece and cut them afterwards. I prefer to do that with methods like smoking, but on this occasion it's going to be easier to make individual ribs so you can get that nice sticky coating around the edge, because I'm going to go for a honey chili garlic kind of flavour on these. So I'm just going to give a little glug of toasted sesame oil, and then in we go with the ribs. Get it on a nice high heat. Get a nice bit of colour on those ribs. Okay, so nice bit of colour. I'll take these out now. Put them back on the board for a sec. Don't worry about them going onto a place that's got raw meat juices on. It's all going to get thoroughly cooked in the next stage. So next, I'm going to go into this tray with some carrots, some thyme, some onions, plenty of garlic. We've got 3 whole bulbs here, some sliced stem ginger, some ginger puree, and plenty of ancho chilies, which they're a nice nice mild chili flavour. Just gives you know, just a nice warmth. You can add bird's eye chili flakes if you like. Oh, there's a star anise in there as well. A little bit of aromatics going on. Give these a bit of a mix around. Let them soak up some of that oil. This is going to act as a bed to roast / braise these ribs on now. Okay, so we've got our ribs in there. On top of the veg, I'm just going to give some Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to also add some runny honey. Be generous. And then I'm going to go in with some Chinese rice wine, some cooking rice wine. About 300 ml of this, just to give it something for moisture throughout the cooking process. I'm going to pop that in the oven, 180 degrees Celsius, or I believe that's 350 degrees Fahrenheit. For about an hour with no lid. Just give it a nice braise. Okay, so whilst the pork ribs cook, I've got myself a nice piece of lamb breast here to make some lamb ribs as well. So I'm going to do pretty much the same thing. Remove the silver skin. Don't really need a bit of a tidy up, it's quite neat as it is, and just cut ourselves some ribs out and give them a bit of a coating. We're going to go Moroccan style this time. Okay, so there's our ribs all nice and separated. Now what I'm going to do is add some spices to make a Moroccan style rub, and the easiest way I found to do this is just to get a sandwich bag and pop your ribs in the sandwich bag with the spices, seal the edge, seal the end of the bag, and just give it a good shake. Give it 5 minutes for them to soak in, and give it another good shake in case there's any loose rub and any uncovered skin. And whilst it's in the bag, you can kind of give it a bit of a massage, keeping your hands nice and clean and getting the rub into all the nooks and crannies of the rib. So in this rub I'm going to be using paprika, sugar, cumin seeds, some salt, coriander seeds, chili flakes, fennel seeds, black pepper, a little bit of cinnamon powder, some onion powder, some turmeric, and some rose petals, and then a little bit of mace, some cardamom pods ground up, some black onion seeds, a little pinch of nutmeg, ginger powder, a little bit of star anise but ground this time, and a tiny bit of clove. So pop these in the bag and give them a shake. Here we go. This is how we do it. It's a bit difficult one-handed, but that's how we are at the moment. So give that a twist around, make sure it's fully sealed, and then just give it a good shake, massage the pieces. So you're happy that everything's coated. Give it 5 minutes and repeat. Okay, there are our lamb ribs that have had 5 minutes and a good shake in the bag with the spices. These are going to go obviously on a baking tray as they are into the oven, 180 degrees for an hour as well. Both the pork ribs and the lamb ribs will be turned over after half an hour. These ones don't need any oil or anything underneath them. There's enough fat in the lamb as it is. Some of it likes to crisp up, some of it will render away, but anything that renders out of these will help to cook them in. So get these in the oven at 180 for an hour, and we should have 2 sets of ribs ready. Okay, next up I've got some veg. So red onion, courgette or zucchini if you're in the US, asparagus, spring onions or scallions if you're in the US, sweet mini peppers or bell peppers if you're in the US, and then wild woodland mushrooms. I've also got some New Jersey Royal potatoes just boiling away. I'm going to boil those until they become tender. Then I'm going to be char grilling the veg and roasting them in a herb butter. So I'll take you through that. Well, in the meantime, the pork ribs have come out. They look and smell amazing. What I'm going to be doing with this now is removing the ribs and then straining the juice from the veg. I'm going to discard the veg. You could use it to make a really nice gravy. The gravy is not really going to go well with this setup because everything's kind of got its own sauce today. So I'll be straining the juice, returning the juice to the tray, putting the ribs back in the juice, and then putting it on the hob and just reducing that juice and turning it into a glaze, and then turning the ribs over until it's all absorbed onto the ribs and it becomes a nice sticky glaze. Do that just before serving. And here are the lamb ribs. They look and smell amazing too. So they're all done. They can just have a very quick blast in a hot oven for 5 minutes before serving. Okay, so let's get some searing done on a griddle pan. Get some nice charcoal style grill lines on the go. Gonna have to do a couple of loads in this pan to get everything in, so that's okay. You could do this on a grill if you wanted, on a charcoal grill or on a barbecue grill, but this is convenience for me today. Get some nice colour on these, both sides, and then do the rest of the veg. I'll show you what's next. Right, so that's the veg char grilled, potatoes parboiled. I've got some ingredients over here, which is pink Himalayan salt, coarsely ground black pepper, some thyme, some butter, some anchovies, yeah, trust me on that one, and some garlic. So I'm going to melt this, mix it all together, pop everything on this baking tray, brush the butter mix over the veg, and roast on medium heat, 150 degrees Celsius. Not too sure on the Fahrenheit for that. That's going to be for half an hour. Okay guys, so I've just mixed up all of our butter, thyme, garlic, salt, pepper and anchovy mix. Gently warmed it first. Now that is going to go into another sandwich bag with the veg. I'm just going to gently tumble it around and then pop it on a tray and into the oven. So back to our beef short ribs. That's how they're looking. The bone is pretty much falling off the meat, or the other way around. I'm going to pour this juice back into the pan that we made the juice in yesterday, the glaze. I'm going to reduce this to a syrup, and that'll be a nice port and brown sugar and balsamic syrup to glaze the top of the beef ribs with. So I'm going to get that onto a low boil and get that reducing down now. Okay, now I've got my ribs back on the hob in the tray with the juice. I'm going to do the same thing with these, but we're going to bathe them in the juice whilst the juice thickens and reduces. That will cause a nice glaze to happen on the ribs, which will be a nice honey, chilli, garlic glaze. Now I've left a couple of little bits of caramelised garlic and stem ginger in there just for added flavour. It'll be quite nice to bite if you find one. It'll be very soft. So as this is reducing, I'm just going to be turning the ribs over, bathing them in this juice, and a little bit will stick every time. Eventually there'll be nothing left on the bottom of the tray and it will be on the ribs. Okay, next I'm going to melt some butter in a pan. Just eyeballing it. I'll just eyeball everything. Some chives in there. Use parsley if you like, but I don't like parsley. So some smoky paprika. Work that down a bit. Just put that on a medium heat. Then we're going to pop our lobster tails in there for 90 seconds just to poach gently. Okay, so I've just fried up some halloumi. A couple of halloumi burgers. Ready to serve. Got our ribs here. They're all nice and glazed now. Really nice thick saucy glaze on the ribs. They're ready to go on. Just before we put them on though, got the lobster that's just finished poaching in there. Don't want to leave that on too long. pop that on the plate. Then we've got our veggies. Absolutely beautiful. We're going to plate them up. Okay, that's our veggies on. Now let's get the ribs in here. And we've just flash roasted these lamb ribs for another 5 minutes on a hot 200-degree oven, just to bring them back up to temp. And these beef short ribs, as you can see, there you go. Meat just wants to fall off the bone. It's very tender, and with the glaze pasted on there, it's gone nice and sticky. Pop them on there. Don't skimp on your portions. Get these lamb ribs on, and there we have it. An absolute feast. I mean, this could probably serve 2 people easily. I have no doubts it's going to get demolished though.